Hello, soulmates, and welcome to another Commander Abridged. This one is a sudden death slugfest, with every deck having at least red in its color identity. Life totals will be going in the right direction, but who will hang on the longest? Let's meet the decks. Going first is James, playing Themberchaud in the deck's debut game. This deck is all about mountains, utilizing myriad cards that say mountain somewhere in their text, and once James's battlefield has as many mountains as possible, the Chad gets slammed down and wreaks havoc on the board and the other players. Next up is me, playing Ruric Thar, a big dumb stupid idiot deck for dumb stupids and dummies that starts blasting as soon as anyone tries to do something smart like play a non-creature spell. Third is Siege, aka Eminence Emmet, playing Inalla, Archmage Ritualist. This is CJ's Oops All Permanents list, full to the brim with value wizards, benefiting from double ETB triggers with Inalla's copy ability. And finally, last but not least, Caps is playing Obosh the Prey Piercer. This is Caps' Rakdos take on Mono Red Prison. It's designed to hurt anyone and everyone for taking game actions, including himself. And yeah, sometimes he plays permanents that don't have an odd casting cost. You don't have to meet the companion restriction when the guy's your commander, Jesus Christ. Anyway, moving on, let's get started. James begins the game with a tapped Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle, and then passes the turn. I play a Forest and tap it for a Birds of Paradise, and then pass to Siege right after. Siege puts down a Path of Ancestry tapped, ending his turn, and Caps plays a Foreboding Ruins, showing off a swamp from his hand to have it come into play untapped. He then passes. James plays a Snow-Covered Mountain, then casts a Ruby Medallion. He passes the turn. Still 160 life around the table. What's going on here? I untap and play a Game Trail as my land for the turn, revealing a forest from my hand. Innistrad reveal lands do in fact bang in 2-color budget land bases in case you forgot. Speaking of forgetting, I tap out for a Shaman of the Forgotten Ways and then pass the turn. Siege plays a Misty Rainforest as his land for the turn, then pays 1 life, there's a little bit of burn damage, and cracks it to get a basic island. He casts a Talisman of Indulgence and passes. Caps starts off with a Swamp, then casts a Felwar Stone.
No, guys, you gotta wait until Ruric Thar is out to do all this shit. No.
Pass the turn.
You guys are crazy.
James plays an Arena of Glory as his land for the turn, and then asks,
Oh, yikes. Do I want to piss people off?
I mean, you should.
Buddy, you do whatever you want to do.
He casts a Magus of the Moon, turning all our non-basic lands into mountains, including his own.
Well, actually, it doesn't really hurt that bad, right? It hurts CJ much, right?
Yeah.
He passes. I have the quickest turn 3 in Magic the Gathering history.
Play a forest areas.
Ouch.
Alright, have fun. Pass turn.
All right, excellent.
Siege plays a Blood Crypt, aka a mountain, as his land for the turn.
Let's go ahead and cast and...
Non-creature spell.
Do we want that? Tom, you're not going to like it if it's a non-creature spell.
I like that.
Probably the right play.
That's so CJ.
He casts a Merfolk Pupil, which triggers Inalla's Eminence ability when it enters the battlefield. Siege pays 1 mana into the trigger and gets a copy of the Merfolk Pupil. They both trigger when entering the battlefield, so Siege draws 1 card and discards 1 card twice. He enters combat and swings his Hasty Pupil at Caps, who doesn't block and takes 1 damage. Siege then passes it over to Caps, sacrificing his Pupil copy at the end of the turn. Caps begins with a Swamp and casts a Shakedown Heavy. With a big beautiful boy in play, he passes the turn. James plays a Snow-Covered Mountain and deliberates a little bit.
Do I take 6 damage for this? That is the question.
He decides yes, and casts an Endless Atlas, taking 6 damage from Ruric Thar on cast. He then passes the turn over to me. I untap and draw and head right into combat. Ruric Thar is a Bing who must swing, so I send him at James, who does not block and takes 6 damage. I play a mountain as my land for the turn, and BMO joins us for the game. I cast a Heartless Hidetsugu in my second main phase, and then pass the turn to Siege. He plays a Haunted Ridge as his land for the turn, also known as another mountain, and casts an Imprisoned in the Moon targeting Ruric Thar. He takes 6 damage on cast, and the spell resolves, turning Ruric Thar into a mountain, thanks to Magus of the Moon. He follows this up with an Impact Tremors, and with no other plays, passes. Caps begins by casting a Sin Prodder, then heads right to combat and swings the Shakedown Heavy at Siege, who immediately lets him draw a card to the attack trigger. He untaps the Heavy and removes it from combat, and the turn then goes to James. James starts off with a snow-covered mountain as his land for the turn, then casts a Claws of the Valakut, enchanting Magus of the Moon with it, giving it +5/+0 and first strike. He heads into combat and swings that bing at me. I don't block and I take 7 damage. With that epic play done, he passes over to me. I start off by casting an Acidic Slime, still a good card, actually not, but that's fine, targeting and destroying the Imprisoned in the Moon when it enters the battlefield, breaking Ruric Thar out from his mountainous lunar prison, but not before being used for mana. I follow this up with a Dragonborn Champion, allowing me to draw a card whenever I deal 5 or more damage to a player, and Heartless Hidetsugu is then activated to deal everyone half their life total in damage, rounded down of course, and since that was more than 5 damage to each player, I draw 4 total cards off of the Dragonborn Champion. Ruric Thar is tapped and therefore cannot attack, so I yield through the rest of my turn and pass it over to Siege. Siege starts off his turn with a Real Mountain, then casts a Trophy Mage, which triggers Inalla's ability when it enters. Siege pays 1 mana and creates a token copy of the Mage, so he gets 2 Trophy Mage triggers and 2 Impact Tremors triggers, dealing 2 damage to each of his opponents. Then for the Trophy's Mage, I think that works like Surgeon's General maybe, he tutors up a Bloodline Pretender and a Herald's Horn. He follows this up with an Apprentice Necromancer, taking 1 damage to create a black mana from the Talisman of Indulgence. Impact Tremors triggers again when it enters, so all but Siege take 1 more damage. Inalla does trigger here, but he lacks the mana to pay for a copy, so he heads into combat and swings the copy of the Trophy Mage at James, who can't block and takes 2 damage.
Don't kill me before I get the chat out. Come on, people.
He passes the turn. Caps untaps, and in his upkeep, the Sin Prodder triggers. He reveals a swamp, and I tell him to put that thing into the yard, taking 0 damage. He plays a mountain as his land for the turn, then heads into combat. He swings the Shakedown Heavy and Sin Prodder at me. The Heavy triggers on attack, and I let him draw a card to take it out of combat. I do not block the Sin Prodder and thusly take 3 damage, and in his second main phase, he casts a Blasphemous Act, taking 6 Ruric Thar damage. On cast, that triggers the Dragonborn Champion, allowing me to draw a card, and James responds to that trigger by activating the Endless Atlas to also draw a card. The Blasphemous Act resolves, and the board is wiped. Caps follows this up with a Vile Smasher the Fierce, and then a Light Up the Stage cast for its spectacle cost of a single red mana. He exiles a Swamp and a Mana Barbs off the top of his library for potential use next turn, and then passes it to James. James top decks a snow-covered mountain and slams down Themberchaud thanks to the cost reduction from Ruby Medallion, exerting the Arena of Glory as well to give it haste. And here is the classic Soulmates misplay of the game.
Well, James, it looks like here we have a mountainous misplay done by, well, you.
Indeed we do, Tom. Looks like I missed the fact that Magus of the Moon was in fact in the graveyard when Themberchaud was cast. It would only deal 4 damage to everything and not 6 like we all thought.
Well, it seems like even the opposing players missed that fact, James. See here, Caps took the damage with open arms. Heck, you even exerted your Arena of Glory to give Chad haste.
Well, you know what they say, Tom. Mistakes happen, and it doesn't seem like it changed the outcome of the game too much. I mean, look at the Impact Tremors on CJ's board with the life totals right now. It seems death was in our future.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself, James. Now let's get back to this game.
So when the Chad enters the battlefield, we all took 6 damage, and each creature took 6 damage. It still would have wiped the board anyway. Just kills Vile Smasher. Puts me at a life total where James enters combat, literally rubbing his hands together like a villain giddy with glee.
Oh my god.
Exert that.
Oh my god!
And he makes one final bing swing at me, exerting it on attack to give it flying. Why not? I can't block. I take 5 Chad damage. I die. Technically didn't, but whatever. We'll talk about that later. Unable to do anything else, and seeing death in his future, James passes over to Mr. Eminence. Siege untaps and casts a Trinket Mage, triggering Inalla. He pays 1 mana into the trigger to get a token copy of Trinket Mage, and Impact Tremors deals 2 damage to Caps and James, and he tutors up a Soul Ring and a Skull Clamp with the 2 ETB triggers. Siege plays the Soul Ring and then a Stony Brook Banneret, triggering both the Impact Tremors, killing James and dealing Caps 1 more damage, and then Inalla. He pays 1 to get a copy of the Banneret and heads into combat.
And swing the 2/2 at Caps and the 1/1 at James.
This is already
dead,
dead,
dude.
so you
I'm
gotta kill
dead.
me.
Oh, okay,
Caps
cool.
is
So I
also
was swing 3.
You literally killed him already, but
He double bings at Caps, taking the sudden death crown. Are we overdoing the bing meme? Let us know in the comments. I kind of don't care because I think it's funny. Anyway, the game is over. So yeah, misplay at the end. As usual, didn't really change the outcome of the game, but worth acknowledging nonetheless. I think I had Rampaging Ferocidon in hand and a couple of other stupid little creatures, but we were all about to get absolutely domed by that Impact Tremors anyway, as you saw, so I think it's okay. Regardless, this was a very fun, very fast, intense game of Magic. I think total playtime was like 27 minutes. Chad got to Chad. Ruric Thar swung his dick around. Obosh didn't come out, but Caps did intimidate the table with some big boys. And then Eminence is proven yet again to be cheating, because the only way you win in Magic is by cheating. And we all know this. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please, I don't know, do the YouTube stuff. Click the buttons if you like us. And if you don't, have a very nice day.